They should be great that way. Sea, or excuse me, not Dead Sea, but going to Israel. I never thought it would happen ever. And God blessed me with the trip. I was able to go. Still not working? We got to make sure we're on, so we're online. So it's good. All right, how about that? All right, good. Never thought I'd be able to go, but God blessed me with the trip, and I'm so thankful for it. It's messed me up because I've tried to, if you go on Facebook, if you have Facebook, there are several sites, and I would encourage you to go, but be careful as you look at them. There's several different sites that have video clips of everything you're going to see and more. And you can see it that way. There's a lot of wonderful information. Like I said, you need to be a little bit careful, making sure that what you hear lines up with the Word of God. But it's pretty fascinating. And I want to be careful not to chase rabbits tonight. So we're going to have a word of prayer, and we're just going to jump on it. And I'm going to go. I'll probably try to talk fast so that I don't get distracted, so that when I do get distracted, I can chase that rabbit quick and get back on it, okay? So let's have a word of prayer. Brother Dan, would you lead us in prayer, sir? Well, this was our group. There's 10 pastors that went on it. I was invited, again, paid for, to go. And I'm going to just say a few things about the first several things that I saw that I don't have pictures of. Now, let me explain why I don't have pictures. 2 reasons. Number 1, it was getting dark. But number 2, I'm going to say this probably several times throughout the night. I don't know where your brain would be, but as a preacher, one who loves the Bible, there were so many times when our guide, Rauf, would say, oh, yeah, over there is such and such, and my brain would just all this information about that spot, and I wouldn't think, to get my camera out and take a picture of that. I just didn't think that way. And so these first things I'll mention to you, I don't have pictures of, but I want to kind of start painting a picture in your mind. We landed in Tel Aviv. The flight from Washington, D.C. to Tel Aviv was 10 hours and 48 minutes on the way there, and it was 12 hours and 42 minutes on the way back because of the wind. So we landed there. Whenever we landed, this is the only vehicle in the whole parking lot, and that belonged to the airport. It was an airport transportation. We were the only vehicle there because we landed, and it was just after 4 o'clock by the time we walked out of the airport. And there they have special holidays for a lot of different things, but that particular day, everything had to shut down. Nothing was open. The highways were empty except for those who were working and were on their way home from work. So we had an hour-and-a-half drive north to Capernaum, and while we drove, we probably, at most, probably saw, either passing on the other side of the highway or beside us, saw maybe 15 to 20 cars. That was it. It's pretty crazy, but everything was shut down. So from the airport to Capernaum, this was my view as far as looking in front of the, it didn't move. Joe, am I not connected? I'll let Joe figure it out here. So he's going to do that. But while we were driving that night from Tel Aviv to Capernaum, we drove past several sites. And the first time I want you to open your Bible to is Ezekiel, please. Ezekiel chapter 3. Good now? All right, thank you. Ezekiel chapter 3. Airport in Tel Aviv. Why would we be looking at Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 15? Because Tel Aviv is what it's called in Ezekiel. We'll read it in just a moment. Is where the children of Israel, remember whenever Judah was attacked by Babylon, the Chaldeans came in and they took the children of Israel captive for 70 years. Do you remember that? They took them to Tel Aviv. So we're going to read right here in Ezekiel 3, verse 15. Then I came to them to the captivity of Tel Aviv that dwell by the river of Chebar and sat where they sat and remained there astonished among them 7 days. So we're driving, and he's saying things like, to the right is where the capital would have been, where the children of Israel would have been brought and kept there for 70 years. He would have gone a little bit further, and he would have said, Cana of Galilee is over to your right also, just to the right, and there's houses there and some buildings, and we're just driving past it. And you remember, we got a van full of preachers. And so all of us are thinking about sermon illustrations, and again, we don't have our cameras out yet. We're not in that mode of taking a bunch of pictures yet. That happened, but not quite yet. We passed Cana of Galilee. We passed Mount Carmel. Now, this was interesting to me. I wish I had a picture of this to show you, because when I hear Mount Carmel, I think of this gigantic established mountain range. How many of y'all see that in your mind? Mount Carmel that you read about in the Bible is actually the side of one of the smallest portions of an entire mountain range. It's not very big at all. And when you look at Mount Carmel, it is desolate. There's no bushes, there's no trees, there's no nothing but rocks. And it's a big deal. Mount Carmel is all throughout Israel's history, wandering in the wilderness, all these different things that happen. There's a lot there, except for when you look at it, you don't see much. You're going to be overloaded with pictures in just a minute, so hang on. We drove past the valley of Megiddo, and it was pitch black where Armageddon's going to take place. By that time, we couldn't see it, but we drove past it. The next morning, we woke up very early, and one of the guys couldn't sleep. So he went right outside the hotel, right on the Sea of Galilee, and there were fishermen there. And there wasn't just one fishing boat. There were many fishing boats, and they were lined up all along the seashore, basically, as far as you could see, right or left. The Sea of Galilee, in comparison, the closest we would see here today is Lake Huron. And Lake Huron's even, from the way you look at it, it's bigger than the Sea of Galilee because you can see across the Sea of Galilee. So there's boats both ways. Whenever a fisherman goes out there still today, they touch water to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they are back in, nets repaired, boats fueled and cleaned, everything's ready for the next day by 11 o'clock in the morning. They never stay on the water past 10, and I'll explain why in just a few moments. So these guys were out at 2. We saw them a few different times throughout the day. We saw them when they were cleaning their nets, and they had their nets on the seashore cleaning, just like what we read about in the Bible, but they still do that today. Whenever you read in your Bible, sometimes you may get confused. Whenever you open the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew refers to this body of water as the Sea of Galilee. Whenever you look at Mark, Luke, and John, it refers to it as the Sea of Tiberias. It's the same body of water. It's just named different things depending on which one you're looking at. This is Brother Chuck. Brother Chuck was preaching. 10 different places throughout the trip, we had basically a church service. So Sunday morning, we got on the water at 7. By 7:10, we had sung a couple songs, and then he opened the Word, and for 20 minutes, he just let it rip. And the more he preached, the louder he got. And it was incredible. It was a great message just about the context of where we were. When he was done, I had videos loaded. They won't play, so I'm not. If you want to see it later, I'd be happy to show you in a separate. But the captain of the boat says, "We're out in the deep by now," and he comes walking out with his net. And I didn't know it, but we didn't know it, but he was setting us up like a bowling pin. says, I'm going to try to catch our most famous fish, St. Peter fish. And he threw the net out on one side of the boat and sunk down, and he brought it up, no fish. And his first mate says, try the other side of the boat. So he goes to the other side and he throws it over, rings it up, no fish. All of a sudden, we started thinking, you can see the minds of all these preachers. And then the captain says, a professional fisherman would never, first of all, never go out at this time of day in the deep, or frankly, any time in the deep of the Sea of Galilee to fish. You'll never catch a fish. He's been doing this for over 30 years. He caught one fish one time, and that's it in 30 years, doing exactly what he did to us this morning. So if in our minds, all of a sudden a light bulb comes on. What did Jesus tell Peter to do? Cast out into the what? Deep. Professional fishermen, been fishing all night. Now we understand the night part, don't we? Because they start at night, and they're ready to go home. And he says, cast out into the deep. Throw your nets on the other side. Remember that? And if you're this sea captain, like this guy is, or you're Peter and the other fishermen, you're thinking in your head, been fishing all these years, never caught anything in the deep, but at your word, I'll do it. And he threw the net over, filled 2 boats worth of fish. It's amazing. I'm going to say more about that in just a few moments. So you keep going. These are just some pictures of the Sea of Galilee. I hope that you could see them. I'm not sure you could see them very well, but it's just gorgeous there to see it. We teased Chuck the rest of the week that he had the easiest message to preach because we were all awestruck at what we were looking at, so much so we didn't hear much of what he said. We did. We were giving him a hard time about it. It was just amazing. Now, let me show you this really quick. This is a point that we started asking questions. I asked a lot of questions. I may have irritated people at first, but then they started asking questions too. Whenever we think of Peter stepping out on the water during the storm, I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. When you think about a storm coming up on the Sea of Galilee, we're not talking about a few little waves. We're talking about major, major waves. We're talking about very, very dangerous water to be on. And we're in this boat, and the water is a little bit further than it is from here to the floor of the carpet. And Peter would have been higher than that. And I don't know what you picture in your mind of him climbing over, just sticking his leg over and walking on the water. He would have had to basically jump down. Now, that'd take a lot of faith in itself, wouldn't it? And then to land and walk to Jesus. And I have these pictures from flannel graph and stuff. And when you're there, it's like, that's not it at all. He would have had to go way down, and then he'd have to probably have a boost to get back in the ship. And Jesus is just going to, he's going to get back on the ship. It was amazing, an amazing thing to see. St. Peter's fish. Is anybody in this room, Mrs. Lipka maybe, anybody else ever had St. Peter's fish? You ever eaten it? It needs to be on your bucket list. It's the best fish you will ever eat. I don't make promises often, but that's the best fish you'll ever eat. They serve it one of 3 ways. You can either get it just like that with the eyeball staring at you, which half the group did. They thought that'd be neat. Or you could get it filleted and fried, which is what I did. Or you can get it baked. They'll do a baked fish. It's really, really good. It has no fishy taste to it. How many of y'all understand what that means? No fishy taste to it. It's like eating a steak, but it's fish. It's really, really good. So you keep going from there. A few more pictures I want to show you that are significant. This is one of my favorites of the entire trip. I love that, and I'll explain a little bit more why in just a moment. One thing I want to point out now, because it's a good time to do it, if you look right there, that just looks like clouds, right? Well, actually, beyond your eyeball is a gigantic mountain range that you can't see. Early in the morning, you can't see very far because the clouds are so thick, and because of elevation. I'm not a really technical person when it comes to this, but the elevation you're at, the clouds are very, very close to you. Several pictures that I had on the way from the top of Galilee coming down to lower Galilee, we were level with the clouds, and sometimes the clouds were below us. And that sounds strange, but that's the reality of this place. And whenever we're coming around the corner, he starts trying to explain to us. This is probably my favorite picture. I don't know if you can see the rays there. Can y'all see the sun rays coming through the clouds? Just beautiful. Well, whenever we were coming around the corner, he started making a big swing. He starts telling us about this mountain range that begins right about there and builds up. If you can imagine a mountain range behind there, you can't see it, can you? But it's there. And that's significant. In just a moment, you'll understand why. we started cresting where he was taking us. We're gonna dock in just a few moments, and we go around this mountainside, and he starts saying, "This is going to be really good. You're going to love this." Before he continues that story, he says, "This is lower Galilee, and we're going to upper Galilee." The clouds started lifting a little bit, and you can start to see the upper portion, can't you? You can start to see that. Then we came around the corner, another great picture. We came around the corner to this. This is what I wanted to show you right there. The mountain range behind the clouds, you can't see it, but it starts there. There's a giant gap there, and it comes down there. There's 3 different points on the Sea of Galilee, where on all 3 points, giant mountain range, but behind the mountain range is desert. It's flat. And the wind comes rushing up behind it. As the sun rises, the wind increases. And so when it comes through that, it'll shoot through that gap. You'll have a better picture of it in just a minute. When it comes through that gap and starts to build, all the pressure from all directions of that mountainside have to release. And he said, you ever had a big balloon and you opened it and you did this and the wind just rushed out? How many of y'all know what I'm saying visually? Well, all the wind that's trapped behind these mountain ranges has 3 places to escape, and this is one of them. Have you ever been reading or heard a preacher talk about how quickly the storms come up on the Sea of Galilee? I've wondered how. That's why. There's 3 different places. Whenever you're on the Sea of Galilee, by 11 o'clock, we saw this happen with our own eyes. By 11 o'clock, the wind is blowing in 3 different directions. And depending upon which portion of the Sea of Galilee you are on, the wind is blowing in a different direction than the other 2. So every day, wind is blowing 3 directions on the Sea of Galilee. That's why the sea can come up. That's why you don't want to be on the water past 10 o'clock. We saw it come up. I don't have time to go through all of this, and there I go rambling. I got to be careful. Let me get to where I was going to show you earlier. You see how sharp that edge is right there? It's just as sharp coming there. I don't know if you can see that at all, but all that wind comes through this little valley right here. So we were over coming off of I think we were at, I can't remember where we are, but we were coming off of it, and it was the same day as this. We were on the far end of the Sea of Galilee, and we noticed that whenever we were on the north end, the wind was blowing towards us. But we were on that portion, the wind was blowing away from where we would have been at an angle this way. And he said, if you go to that corner right there, and he pointed to it, the wind will be blowing that way. So literally the wind 3 different ways in one day on the same lake at the same time. Sounds crazy, but we saw it happen. Now this is interesting to me. I never even heard of this before. But when you're looking at this thing, this is what they call a carob tree. Now, in Michigan, we're driving down the highway. You see those kind of ugly trees that in springtime or during the summer, they have those big purple plumes on them. You know what I'm talking about, on the side of the road? This grows the same type of thing. It's almost like a pine cone, except for it's fuzzy. And that's what they feed pigs with. So remember the prodigal son? He would have fed pigs the fruit or that fuzzy pine cone off of the carob tree. That's what that is right there. Carob tree, they're all over the place. They call it a trash tree. You can't do anything with it. The wood's really soft. You can't really do anything with the wood. And the only thing it's good for is to grow food to feed the pigs. That's what the tree's there for. That's why they keep it around. Mount of Beatitudes. This was pretty cool. All of the different ones, blessed are there's little pillars when you walk into this park. You walk through a gate and you're walking down a sidewalk and you see these different pillars as you go down. Almost everywhere you go in Israel, if it's a cool site, they have a new Catholic church built there. And they do different things, different religious practices. But we stopped outside of it and we had a little devotional there to the right-hand side. Brother Joe's opened the word for us and he's teaching us. But I showed you that because right beyond that, I don't know if can y'all see that little gate right there, little fence? Can you see that? Is it showing up for you? It's just a simple bar gate, and it drops off there way down into the Sea of Galilee. One of the videos I was going to show was going to show you that, but this is a significant place because this is really important because whenever he's preaching, culturally still today, whenever you speak there, you always want your audience to be above you. I'll show you another place in a few minutes where we sat and we listened, and the speaker was below us. Everything is so hard. There's rocks everywhere, giant rocks, and the sound vibrates off of it. So you don't even have to speak loud. I'll skip ahead very quickly. The Garden Tomb, when we went there, our speaker stood on the ground, and we sat on these rocks all the way up, and he was almost whispering. And we could hear him as if he was talking. There was another group maybe 20 yards away, and they had 40-something people, and their guide was over there whispering to talk to all of them. I say that to say this. That morning, Sunday morning, we were taught a very physical, real lesson in front of us. Jesus, these miracles that he did, they defied nature. Let's talk about two different times whenever he calmed the storm. That was significant because when we left, when we docked, by the time we docked on the Sea of Galilee, it was around 9 o'clock. And I was going to take time to show you, but it says that when he calms it, it's like glass. It's calm as glass. And whenever we were on the water at 7 o'clock that morning, the only waves there were on the entire thing that we could see were coming wakes from the boat we were in. Very, very calm. That was by 9 o'clock we got off. And then by 10:30, an hour and a half, we're standing. I'll show you in a few minutes where we were. We're standing just maybe a half a mile away from there, and there's 4-foot waves coming in. In an hour and a half, that's how quickly things change on the Sea of Galilee. So by 10:30, remember what time the fishermen make sure they're off the water? By 10 o'clock, they're off the water because the wind is going to change. As the sun comes up, the wind increases. So we saw that. I got to hurry. Mount of Beatitudes. The second, he talked to them, calmed the storm twice. And also when he preached this message, Mount of Beatitudes, his audience should have been above him. But they built that Catholic church there on the top of that cliff area because the people were below him. They were all out below as he taught. So instead of the voice going up, which is what nature does, he defied nature by talking, and his voice went down to the people. Now, I don't know if you can see it well in this picture. It's hard to see. The picture doesn't do it justice, but this slope goes down at a very rapid pace. This is a lot steeper than it looks in the picture, all the way down to the water. Another thing that we figured out really quickly is that over there, things are a lot closer in the way that you think than we are here. Okay, so when we docked about right there, and this at the bottom where this hill would go down to is roughly a half mile to 3/4 of a mile away. That's not very far. It looks like it's further than that. We were surprised by how close everything was. We're used to driving. They walked. So I'm sure they were glad it was only 3/4 of a mile, right? However, as we're going to discover in just a minute, walking then is not the same as walking now. The terrain here, I'm a flatlander. How many of y'all know what I just said? There's none of that. My grandma used to say I walked uphill both ways, and I didn't understand that. I learned what that meant when I was in Israel. Because everywhere you go, it's uphill or side hill or both at the same time. We would leave our van walking uphill to get back to our van. Guess what? We had to walk uphill. Somehow it happened every time. We were walking uphill constantly. So the this was a video it's not going to show, but this is just another thing I can show you later. Now, sources of the Jordan River. This was interesting to me. There's 3 different rivers that feed the Jordan River. One of them is dried up, and there's no water coming out of it at all because its primary source to be fed is snow melting off of Mount Hermon. There is no snow on Mount Hermon. There has not been any snow for the last 3 years. So the Jordan River is very, very low. The Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River dumps into the Sea of Galilee. So therefore, the Sea of Galilee is very, very low also. They've also had a 3-year drought in reference to rain. They have not had very much rain. So the first river that feeds it is completely dried up. The second river that feeds it is, let me catch up here. This is Snir, S-N-I-R. Now, this is a very calm river at this time, and we're there. But this bridge that we're standing on is roughly 8. I don't know if you can see it in the picture. Can y'all see the second bridge right there? Most of the time, no one can stand on this bridge because it's underwater. When things are flowing the way they should, that bridge is underwater, and you stand up on that secondary bridge, it's higher. That's how low the water table is. The next one was fascinating to me. I would never, ever, ever, ever imagine this. Whenever you talk about the Jordan River over there, they talk about the mouth of the river. Has anybody ever heard that phrase, the mouth of the river? The mouth of the river is a spring that's inside that little cubby there. It's just bubbling water constantly. And you think, well, what's the big deal? How could it feed the Jordan River? Remember that the water table is very low. Remember that there's a drought for 3 years. And yet, whenever you go just go around that corner from where the spring is, you're going to come to this. And it's like whitewater rapids right now. And it's roughly 10 feet lower than it normally is. The main spring that feeds the Jordan River, it's very low, but it's still loud as if you were at a rapids. Now, why would I tell you that? I'm glad you asked. I want you to open your Bible to the book of Psalm, chapter 42. Psalm chapter 42. Dan is what we're looking at. This is referred to as the river Dan that feeds into the Jordan River. It's the most abundant of waters that feed into the Jordan River. David, when he was writing this psalm, Psalm 42, he is standing. I'm going to show you the next picture. This is some of these places, whenever you're going, if you've been there before, they say, we think it's close to here. It could be this, maybe not, somewhere over. This is one place they feel very, very certain. This sign is placed in Dan, or Tel Dan. That is where David was in that spot. He was probably camped out there with a tent or something like that when he wrote Psalm 42. The thing about that sign is as close as probably me and Miss Annie, so maybe 10 feet or less from where Dan is flowing, and it's rapids, and it's loud. I want you to have that in your mind. The spring that feeds Dan is less than 30 yards away. It's uphill, but it's less than 30 yards away. Think of that as we read. In Psalm 42, verse 1, as the hart panteth after, what's the next 3 words? The water brook, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul, what, church? Thirsteth for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they're continually saying to me, where is thy God? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me, for I have gone with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God with, what's the next few words? The voice of joy and praise. Literally, our guide, Rauf, said, rushing water like rapids is referred to as joy and praise. Those two things echoing each other in their culture, especially in that day. So whenever he writes, I've been in trouble, mourning, all these things are bad. And then in this part of the verse it says, with the voice of joy and praise, with a multitude that kept holidays. Why are thou cast down, O my soul? Why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall praise him for the help of his countenance. O my God, my soul is cast down within me. Therefore will I remember thee from the Lord, the land of Jordan, and of the Hermonites, from the hill of, what's the next word? Mizar. I'm setting you up like a bowling pin. If you're in the habit of marking your Bible, underline that word. It's important. I'll tell you why in just a minute. Mizar. Deep calleth unto deep. Can you hear it? The water's coming all around him. It's almost deafening how loud it is. Deep calleth unto deep at the noise of thy, what's the next word? Water spouts. All thy waves and thy billows are gone over me. That word Mizar or Mizar, whichever way you want to say it, is the same word as Mount Hermon. It's the same name. It's the same mountain. And he's at the base of that. What does Mount Hermon look like? I'm glad you asked. There it is. Except for that's just the face of it. This particular day, we were there early again. There's another mountain range behind that you can't see. The mountain range behind is what would be covered in snow usually. And it has not been covered in snow in over 3 years. But this is a very important place in Israel's history, Mount Hermon. The next place we're going to talk about is Tel Dan. Another word that you'll see in your Bible is Naphtali. It's a really important place. It's the beginning point of Mount Hermon. That's the mountain range you were looking at a few minutes ago, right in there. This is where it continues on. The front lower side you can see there, it's back behind also. And this is a very important place in Israel's history, back whenever they came into the Promised Land. And the land was divided up to all 12 different tribes. And this was the border. Where actually that fence right there is the border. The side we're standing on, if you look at a map in your Bible, and it divides up the land of Israel, the Canaanite, or land of Israel, all the different tribes, you're going to see a distinct line where Lebanon starts and where the children of Israel continue. Lebanon is on the other side of that fence, that stone fence right there. That's all Lebanon. You see an Israel flag there. I took a panoramic view, so it curves it, but this is a straight line. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's a straight line right there. Everything on the other side is Lebanon. There was also land that God told them to conquer, but they never did. Israel never took that. Instead, Lebanon took over a good portion of Israel's land, and it's very hard for me to put into words. It was hard for him to explain to us also. But Lebanon, when they took over, way, way back, when they took over the land that God had promised to his people, they wanted to build modern-day casinos, a place where you come in and you buy and you'd spend money. You'd stay there in hotels. You'd entertain yourself. There's entertainment for you, all sorts of stuff. The number one reason they did, because that was the main water source for the whole region. It had the best water, the purest water. They wanted to entertain their guests. This is a beautiful area. The pictures don't do it justice. This is all the same place. Whenever we fast forward in our minds, I want to tell you that there was one time in this whole trip where I was really frustrated. I was there to see Bible stuff. And our guide says, I'm going to take you to a nature preserve. You guys are all from America, probably hunters. I'll take you to a nature preserve. And usually I'd be really excited. But I wasn't. I didn't come there to look at animals. It's what's happening in my mind. So he set us up like a bowling pin then, because we weren't going to look at animals. First thing we're looking at 4 things in this nature preserve that are significant for you as a child of God. Remember whenever the nation of Israel was divided into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom? Remember that? Well, Jeroboam made a lot of mad mistakes. He did a lot of things that he should have never done. Hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. Let me back up, okay? Before Lebanon took over all those things, there was a gentleman you might remember by the name of Samson. How many of y'all remember his name? Well, they had not taken all the land they were supposed to, and Israel's hope of getting all the land, including this area where Dan was supposed to have inhabited permanently, their hope of gaining that land was Samson. But Samson failed then. And then a man named Solomon came along. And Solomon was going to regain everything. And he did a good job. He gained a lot of the land back for them. It was a good time when Solomon was there. God blessed. The problem is, Solomon saw the same thing in this specific region where the water spring was, in this beautiful area that Lebanon saw. And so Solomon, after living wisely for a while as king, started marrying wives who worshiped false gods. Remember that? So in this exact place where they were going to build casinos and all that stuff, Solomon built his wives their temples for their false gods. All of this is happening in the same exact place. And for punishment, because of what Solomon did, God said that the nation is going to be divided. And so that's when the nation was divided into 2 tribes, the 10 northern tribes, 2.5 southern tribes. When that took place, Jeroboam built this first temple. Now, you're actually looking at an outside foundational wall. It's the only one of the 4 walls that are still there that you can see. But I want you to see how wide these are. These stones are approximately 3 foot wide by 5 foot tall. And they are just absolutely huge. Now, I don't know how your brain works, but my brain works this way. How did they move those things? And then whenever he told us that the walls would have been at least 6 of these stones high, I'm thinking to myself, how did they get 5 more of those stones of that size on top of each other? Somehow they did. I'm going to show you some pictures in a minute also that show some more architecture that I don't understand how they did. It's amazing. But whenever you start looking through these pictures, you start seeing you see that what's left of a sacrificial place. They would worship false gods there, burn offerings to golden calves, etc. We sat on the stones here. These are the steps. which were like bleachers in a basketball gym. People would come and they'd line up these seats just to watch people to, offer their sacrifices to false gods. They, just like we do today, whenever we built the barn out there, they had to drill these big holes and put these, what are they called, Brother Todd? Like pellets, just cement pellets at the bottom, and then they put the beams in on top of that. It's the same principle here. They had large stones with holes in it, and that's how the inner walls, that's how they supported those walls there. So here's one of the best pictures you can have of that whole sacrificial area where they would sacrifice the false gods. We go from there to this place. This is a town called Laish, L-I-E-S-C-H. And it was built before Dan actually came in and settled. He settled there in this area during the time of the judges. His father Jacob said, you're going to be a restless person. You're not going to settle anywhere. And Jacob brought his people here. They stayed here Dan brought his people here, stayed long enough to live to the judges. When the period of judges was over, they abandoned the land. And when they did, ungodly people moved in. They bought this, they occupied this land. I don't know if you could see it very well, but in the middle there's a post sticking up out of the ground. Can you see that? That is a place of another altar. So they had they reestablished Jeroboam's altar, his place of worship, and they established also a second place here. I started to say it earlier. Whenever the two tribes were divided, king was worried that the northern tribe would want to go back down to Jerusalem to sacrifice. How many are with me right now? So he established two places of worship. In the north, there was Dan. This is Dan. This is where they would worship. In the south, it was Bethel. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But this was set up as a place of worship for all the northern kingdom to come to. They had to travel to it. Now, why is that a big deal? I'm glad you asked. Whenever you go to this place, you're going to find something else. This is called Abraham's Gate. It's at Tel Dan. This, as far as anybody knows, this is over 4,000 years old. This is really, really old. And it's the biggest mud brick archway in the entire world. I didn't even know anything about this. Many claim that Abraham, once he got older, he settled down here. They built a big home for him, and from there they built it bigger after he died. And so this is what it looked like. This is the stone or mud brick entrance. This is a big, gigantic thing. And at the time, it would have been very significant. 4,000 years ago, this would have been a skyscraper that we know today. Very big place, very, very affluent people live there. And that background, you can see the archway they've uncovered. And they keep it covered with that tarp so the rain doesn't hit it. What does rain do to mud? Makes it melt away, basically. So they're protecting it from melting away. Now, out of everything you've seen from Dan, this is the most impressive thing to me. That. You say, why would you say that's important? I'm glad you asked. Open your Bibles to Genesis chapter 14. Whenever you read through the life of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, you read about these men traveling. And when they traveled, they had to go on certain routes that were available for them to go on. You say, why didn't they just take whatever route they wanted? Because you couldn't. This looks all nice and friendly and kind, but it is not. I've never seen anything as rugged as what we were looking at every single day. These mountains were incredible to look at, but they were very rough terrain. They were referred to as extreme traveling conditions. And so for any one of those three to travel across this mountain range was just something impressive. I couldn't even believe it as I was looking at it. But I want you to think back in your mind to a young man that Abraham knew. It was his nephew. What was his name? Yeah, Lot. And he went to Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember, over time, an enemy came in and took Sodom and Gomorrah captive. And word came back to Abraham that his nephew and the people had been taken captive. You still with me? Whenever he heard that word, he would have been over here in this region. That's where his animals would have been. That's where his family would have been. That's where he would have been established in that time. Sodom and Gomorrah are way off the picture over here, and they would have been taken way over here. I know it's hard to picture in your mind, but the mountain range just continues way over here. That is an incredible task. Just to pass this one mountain peak right here is an incredible task. The picture doesn't do it justice. It literally, everywhere you look, the face of this mountain is just cliffs. Everywhere it's just cliffs. Yet the Bible describes Abraham taking his 300 servants, and they crossed this entire mountain range, and they kept crossing it, and they kept crossing it till they got to where the enemy had everything held up. They delivered Sodom and Gomorrah and brought them all the way back. And then Abraham, after that, wouldn't take any money or any type of payment. He says, you're not going to get credit for what God's done. Y'all remember that? He says, give reward to the ones who come and fought, but I won't take anything from you. And then he had to travel all the way back. They estimated it would have taken probably 3 weeks just to cross that, going 20 miles a day. 20 miles a day, climbing up a mountain and down a mountain, up and down a mountain, and he wouldn't take it. Why am I telling you that? Because Abraham was so dedicated, wanting to be faithful to God and his testimony pure, that he wouldn't take a penny. I was challenged by that. I don't know what anybody else was thinking about at that moment. I know what I was thinking about. Is I need to be more faithful, more sold out, more on purposely wanting God to get the glory from everything that happens in my life. That I take thought to letting anything else take the credit when God alone should. I don't know if that means anything to you. It meant a lot to me in the moment. This is a place that I knew about, but I didn't know about. How many of y'all have ever read about Caesarea Philippi? Ever read about that place? This needs to be on your bucket list one day if you're ever able to see it, or whenever we get to heaven, have God show it you on your big screen in the sky, okay? This place is incredible. It takes your breath away. I'll say more about some things in just a moment. But this is a very significant place in your Bible. It's a very significant place in the day that Jesus walked the earth, because people would come literally from all over the world seeking God. And they had one destination in place. It wasn't Jerusalem, and it wasn't places we would think about. They wanted to get to Caesarea Philippi. And they wanted to climb this little trail and go up into the caves here. I'll explain more about that in just a moment. But Jesus deliberately brought his disciples here. I want to kind of just slow down for just a minute. He literally brought his disciples to this place. And when he brought them there, he asked them 2 questions. Who do others say that I am? And then he said, who do you say that I am? And remember Peter's answer? He said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the, what's the next 2 words? Living God. That's significant. Here's what I'd like for you to notice. I don't know if you can read it there or not, but down here in the corner, it lists the 7 different temples that were built at Caesarea Philippi just on the face of this mountain that we looked at a few minutes ago. If I go back one, the face of this entire mountain, there's 7 temples that are built there. And it's an incredible thing to see. And depending on which temple you want to go to, there's different paths to walk up to. And I'm going to get ahead of myself just very quickly, but this is an incredible sight to see. The natural stone is still there where they would have walked up, and there'd be a temple up here. You see the pillars there. There'd be a temple here. There'd be a temple here. All these different, you have many options. It's like going to a strip mall. Which store do you want to go in today? And they'd come seeking for something that tickled their fancy religiously. And then you go through this, and it's just incredible. There's people there constantly. He told us this is the most visited site in all of Israel. People come here regularly, and I'll show you a demonstration of that in just a few moments. Whenever I looked at this, I had a hard time wrapping my mind around. But then he asked us to open our Bibles to Matthew chapter 16. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. There's 2 different, if you look at the pictures later, you could see it. There's 2 different temples significant that I think you would find interest in. One of them is a temple to Augustus. That was the religion of Rome at the time. This is not Rome, but they had a temple to Augustus here. That's how crazy all the different options were. The temple of Pan was here. We were talking about the spring of Pan, the river of Pan earlier. This is a god, lowercase P-A-N. And Pan, basically, it was a free-for-all, do whatever you want, whenever you want, and however you want. As long as it makes you feel good, that's an act of worship. It was extremely wicked. This whole place is wicked. They've all come to follow after and seek after dead or false gods. So when Jesus is demanded by the religious uppities to prove that you are who you are, in private, he grabs his disciples and he sneaks off and he takes them to this place called Caesarea Philippi. And he walks up that path and he gets up probably in this area here. There's a flat station there in the mouth of Pan. And he reads, this is the record of it. Matthew 16, verse 13. When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, others Jeremiah, and one of the prophets." He saith unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Simon Peter answered. I want you to notice this very carefully. If you don't hear anything else in the entire passage, hear this, and you'll know why in just a moment. "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." That was his answer. Jesus answered, saying to him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven." Skip down to verse 20. "Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ." Caesarea Philippi, in their language still today, is interpreted as a place of decision. Whenever you seek after God, basically before you would leave Caesarea Philippi, it would be expected of you to make a decision in your heart which God you would follow. So whenever he is speaking to the disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" You're Jesus, the Son of the living God. The place of decision, they had to choose who they were going to follow. And in their mind, their heart, they're going to follow Jesus. This is early in their ministry. When they're following Jesus, just early on, they make the decision. You fast forward 3 years from this date when he says, "Don't tell anybody." Jesus is crucified, he's buried, he's risen from the grave. And then next thing you know, 40 days later, Pentecost happens and the disciples go crazy, don't they? The apostles all are willing to lose their life for this man that Jesus said, "Don't even tell him who I am." After he's dead and buried and risen, they tell everybody. They go crazy. The first recorded message you read of basically is Pentecost from Peter, but the second major one you hear Peter preaching is at the spring of Dan. Remember where we were earlier? He said that spring, the mouth of the Jordan River, where the false gods were worshipped there. There's 2 different cities right in that area, and he goes to the mouth of it, right to that area I showed you a picture of, and he starts preaching. And people are getting saved right and left because with power and authority, what Jesus taught them here, and they made the decision that who they would follow. It happened on this day and was carried out after his ascension. I asked you earlier to remember, these are just some different pictures of that wall face. One of my favorite pictures here from the mouth of Dan looking out. It's incredible to see this. Because I don't know if you could see it very good or not, but those are all charter buses. Whenever we pulled into the parking lot, now before we go further, this was the second or third day, and there had not been not one car at any of the places we'd gone to yet. And we pulled around the corner, and I think it was 14 or 15 charter buses were in this parking lot. That's how popular this place is. And that's the whole parking lot was built for charter buses to park in. So most of the time during a busy season, which right now they're trying to get business up, which is why I got a free trip, but they're trying to get business up. You can't even walk at this place without bumping into people everywhere you go. It's so crowded because people want to come see what it's all about. The spot was literally littered with dead and empty gods, and he says, "You're the Son of the living God." Whenever Jesus responds to Peter and he says, "Flesh and blood have not revealed this to you." Because flesh and blood were all there to seek out 7 different false gods. Everybody tracking with me so far? It says, "My Father revealed this to you." You're blessed because you know the truth. I had to fast forward. Time is flying. Capernaum. Somebody asked you, do you have any favorite places that you were at? Capernaum's one of them. Oh, I have to show you this. You see that circle right there? That's a grinding circle. So you could put wheat in there, you could put all sorts of different things in there, and someone stands and grabs that pole and starts pushing it away, pushing it around the circle. But the thing that's interesting to me, and I find it only God can get the glory for it, it's buried right now, but before the last landslide that buried it, this circle goes down in the ground another 3 feet. And all around the entire edge of that circle are the words that Peter gave to Christ. "Who do man say that I am? Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." So the whole time they're grinding, they're looking down at the truth of who Jesus is. It's pretty incredible. I know y'all are impressed. I could tell by your response. It's pretty great if you're there, I promise. It's just incredible to see that. I love it. They're trying to worship false gods, and the answer is there. Capernaum. There's two different main spots for Capernaum. Capernaum, there's the outskirts. So again, we got to remember, it's not the same dimensions that we have today. In your mind, I want you to picture the backstop out here. Everybody caught it in your head how far out the backstop is? What is that, about 400, 500 yards away? So outer skirts of Capernaum, where I'm going to show you right now, that's where we're at. That's how far away we are from the city of Capernaum. Okay, so most of the places you go, they have little awnings with these stone benches. Take a cushion with you if you go to Israel, because there are none in the whole place. If you want to sit on a cushion, take it with you. You're sitting on stones, and he begins to read about, I don't have time to read all of it, but he begins to read about the calling of the disciples. But then he fast forwards from there, and in Mark chapter 1, verses 16 through 20, it's out of order because that's just how it was as we were traveling. But later on, after Jesus has given his life, he's been buried, he rose again. Do you remember the encounter that he had with Peter and the ones who went fishing with him? He had fixed a little breakfast for them, hadn't he? With some fish ready. They were cooked and ready for them to eat. And he confronts Peter, "Lovest thou me?" How many times did he ask him that? 3 times. And he asked him that basically for every time that he denied Christ, he asked him the question. So just past or behind us is that beach. Now, you say, well, how do you know that that's where that happened? Because there's only 2 places that you could ever dock a ship, and one of them is very dangerous. This is the only safe place you could dock a ship. So this is where it would be. They have a Catholic church there. Surprise, surprise. If you walk down this path, you come around the corner. Now, I told you earlier that the Sea of Galilee is very, very low. Whenever you come around it, you turn back and look up. From the water, which I'm standing around the water's edge, up to the base of that church is around a 15-foot drop. So the water in the Sea of Galilee is about 15 foot deeper at this time of Mark than it is right now. And if you look up here, this is very, very, very fine gravel. And that's their sand. It's not sand like we know it. It's little fine gravel. And that's where they would have ridden their boats up into and docked their boats there. The next picture is pretty cool. Now, before I show you this picture, you got to understand, they say things like, we believe this is. We believe this is. Customs say this is. But this is a pretty cool picture. Inside that church is this rock. This big rock. It'd probably take up at least from here to the pulpit. It's about 3.5 foot tall. Going towards the water, it's flat stone. And they believe that Jesus prepared the fish and the meal right there at the base of that rock. There'll be a fire pit right about there. They have colored stones there where they believe the fire pit was, where he made the fish for Peter and the other fellows. So that's a pretty cool thing to see. I'll just say it now because it's going to get worse actually as we go. You walk into a Catholic church, you think your mind's going to be distracted by all this stuff you see. I didn't see any of that. All I saw was that rock. And we're going to go into some places you're so distracted, if you're not careful by everything else, you miss the point of why you're there. So let's just try to keep that in mind as we keep going. I'm just going to go as quick as I can and forget the notes because I got 14 pages of notes and I'm on page 5 and we don't have much time. So I'm going to just go. Capernaum. This is one of the coolest places of the whole trip for me. And I'll just kind of tell you as I go, if I get distracted, forgive me. That's important. I wanted to show you that. Capernaum has the biggest synagogue of any that's known in the whole region. This is where Jesus spent the majority of his public ministry. I want you to notice something significant, please. This is a model or drawing of what the synagogue would look at. I want you to notice that there's a 1-story side on this side, and it's 2-story here. Do y'all see that? The first story, I'm going to show you in just a minute. The first story is roughly 18 feet tall, and there was a second story on top of that. The biggest synagogue around. Very, very popular place because, again, this is the only area where you could dock a boat. This is a very, very popular place for commerce, to make money. And I'll show you more about that in just a few minutes. We sat under a tree and we had a devotional that's the ruins of that synagogue behind us. I was choked up. In the notes it says, involuntary tears fell. They did. I couldn't believe it. I don't cry, but I was there. Just thinking about seven different miracles of Christ took place right there. More than any other place. Whenever I was looking at this, they walked us to, if you see a darker color stone there, do you see that? Then a lighter stone on top of it. The darker stone is believed to be predate Jesus. So before he was on the scene, that was it. They've built on top of that now, and you're going to see the sign there. The black stones, they know for sure. They know for sure that those were before Jesus. The foundation is built on top of the black. There's a whole layer of black stone underneath the entire synagogue, and they're all laid on top of that. Kind of walk through quickly. This is what the inside of that synagogue would look like. That would be the main entrance. If you're coming from the city of Capernaum, which is, by the way, about where that piano is, from the entrance to the synagogue. If you're coming from the city, you're going to walk in this door. And this is what you walk into. There's a second story on top of that. See how tall that is? That's the first story, second story. That's significant. I'll tell you why in just a minute. You keep going, you look around. It's just absolutely beautiful. The surroundings are beautiful. Everything about it's beautiful. Now, whenever you go over to these windows or these doors that go to the second area, that is where people live. That would be an entire family to live inside of that. Well, how big is that? Anywhere from 5 by 8 to 5 by 10. A whole family would live there. And so this whole area is homes. I say that because probably that whole area to the east of the synagogue is about as big as our paved concrete out here, and they estimate 2,000 plus lived in the size of our paved concrete. That's a paved parking lot. That's how big the area is. If you go to the south of the synagogue, you start turning the corner. Now you're turning the corner and you start seeing the Sea of Galilee behind. This is directly, you walk out that front entrance and you're facing the rest of the city is right here. Where this new Catholic church is, the big glass Catholic church is right on top of where Peter's house was. You remember whenever Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law? Do you remember that? He would have been teaching all day, all morning, and whenever he left the synagogue, there's a road right there. We say road, it was a path. It's roughly 4 feet wide. That's what roads look like. I'll show you another city in just a few minutes. He would have walked out the front door, around that path to Peter's house, and that's where they're going to have lunch. As you get closer to it, this is underneath. This is what it looked like underneath that Catholic church. Probably, again, a home here, a home back there, homes in all these, every crevice, every corner, people live there. There's different reasons you would different ways that they set up their homes. This is just more pictures of it underneath the big church. That very center area, it looks bigger than it is. That would have been Peter's home where he lived. You go inside that Catholic church, glass all the way around it. Pretty cool place here. I said it's bigger than it is. It's smaller than it looks like it is. You look straight down into Peter's home. That's where Peter would have lived, where Jesus would have healed Peter's mother-in-law. And then you look out, it's facing back to the synagogue. I'm showing you this picture for a second time because this is the very first huge moment in when my brain exploded. We're sitting right outside the synagogue, and Rauf says, I want you to look back that way. And he points down the sidewalk. And he points to this gate. There's a gate right here going towards the beach. That gate's the same gate that would have been there back in Jesus' day. And he tells us about the fact that I want to make sure I get it right. Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Matthew, who is called Levi. He's a tax collector. They all come from Capernaum. Matthew, Levi, was no doubt the most hated man in the entire region. Here's why. The only place big enough to dock a big boat, a fishing boat, is the beach that's right on the other side of that gate. And the only way you could get what you caught that day into town to sell it was to walk through that one singular gate. We don't understand that today because our roads and sidewalks and everything are the way they are. That's the only place you can enter the city. And Matthew or Levi would sit right there at that gate. Peter hated Levi, very desperately hated him, because every time Peter caught fish, he's going to sell them, and he'd walk right past who? Tax collector. And if he caught, let's just say round numbers, 40 fish that day, well, whatever number sounded good to Matthew that day, that's how much he had to pay in taxes. And it was different probably every single day. Whatever he liked, that's what he got. And he was very frustrated. But Matthew got saved, didn't he? And you go on forward, he began to serve the Lord. This is a video that I was going to show you this whole area there. I'm glad that you can at least see this, because this is the far right-hand side of the, quote, beach. All right? How many of you remember reading about the feeding of the 5,000? Okay? Again, things aren't as far away as they are in our mind, in our day. But as you're standing here right on the side of the beach, if you can imagine, that's a washout, but maybe 25 yards, there's green grass right here. And there's a whole hillside. Feeding the 5,000 took place right there. And I wish that I had the video to show you, but I can show you later. It's just a very significant place in our Bible as we read it, and you're there. Okay, so Capernaum was awesome. Number one, without a second, number one was Magdala for me. It was incredible. Never even heard about it before. Anybody heard of Magdala before? Great, a couple of you, good. I never had. Well, this is the home of Mary Magdalene. This is also the very first place that Jesus took his disciples. Whenever you go to Magdala, you're going to see some things that are pretty cool. I'm going to try not to get ahead of myself too far, but I have to read this or I'll mix it up, and I'll mix up the details. So you go into Magdala, the same thing we talked about earlier. It's uncovered. They dug this up. It was excavated. These are all the homes again leading up to the synagogue. I asked you to pay attention to how high the roof was and all that stuff, and the other one, because it was big. This is what a synagogue would look like, and the sizes. There'd be a wall right there, and a wall there. So if you divide our auditorium in thirds, a third of our auditorium is the biggest a synagogue would probably be, except for in Capernaum. Now, what's significant about Magdala is a lot of things. One of them being, and we're sitting there listening and learning about this place, I never heard of it. That is called a Magdala stone. You ever heard of a Magdala stone before? A Magdala stone is, they're calling this, now, this is where my brain starts racing. I got to slow down. There's only one that they know of, and it was uncovered when they re-uncovered Magdala. And if you could see, I'm showing you now, that's a whole wall of windows. That's a museum that you have to pay a lot of money to go to. Very few people go there. The original Magdala they uncovered is inside that museum. They made 2 replicas of them, and both of them are right here. And this is one of them inside glass. You can look at it and walk around it. It's very intricate. All the details and carvings, they all mean something significant. If I had time, I'd tell you, but I don't have time. But it's all inside this cave. When you go into the synagogue to walk around, that's the second one that's on display that you can see. It's a stone. Now, it's a little confusing to me because it's roughly 2 feet high. So that's roughly how tall it is. But if you were to come into the synagogue as a teacher to teach, before you taught, they'd give you a scroll, and you had to unroll the scroll and lay it on the Magdala stone. That's what you'd lay it on. And you would read that facing Jerusalem. You had to face Jerusalem whenever you were reading. You'd lay it on the Magdala stone and read. So that was, the pictures don't do it justice. It's really awesome. I wish they were there right now so you could see it for yourself. But it's on display. You could see it. As you're going around the synagogue, you'll see that there's some original mosaic stones still in the ground. As we get there, you start to see it here, that whole side of the sidewalk there. That's in the ground still, and that's from way back in Jesus' day. It's still there. You can't even get close to it. They have it marked off with cameras all over it, but that's still there. They have a couple of different places you can see. You get close enough to see them. This was really neat. They talk about this a lot. Before there were what is called, I just said it a few minutes ago, those little jewelry stones. What is that called? I can't think of it right now. They would mosaic stones. Before they had those, they would paint in the same way. And they got the idea to start putting it on the floor because they'd paint walls in these very intricate, detailed way. And that's one of the inside walls that's painted that way inside that temple or that synagogue. This is the best picture of a street that I could give you. That's in Magdala. Again, it's about 4 feet wide. And so that, if you notice also right on the side of the street is a big trench. That was something different too. The streets there that you walk on, you have to be very careful to stay on the street because if you don't, you're going to fall into a pit. There's ditches really deep. They collect water that way. Water runs downhill. So water would fill those ditches and they'd run to a cistern down at the bottom of the hill. Why do they need cisterns? Well, this is a filtration system. You have a rain gutter on your home. I don't know if you've ever caught water from rain that way. This is how they caught rainwater. These stones laid sideways like that in the ground. Water would fall down through it, and they'd all go down to a cistern. This is basically, I'm getting ahead of myself because of time, but the cistern would all bring the water here, and it'd pour into these gigantic these baths. They're called mikvahs. I never studied those out before. They're called mikvahs. And everywhere you go in Jerusalem, you see mikvahs. It's a washing station. And before you go into the synagogue, every time before you go into the synagogue, you have to enter a mikvah. And you have to get physically cleansed so that you can go in pure or pure before to worship. And the way that you would do that, I'm going to show you this in just a second. This is what it looks like. One of the best pictures I can give you. What it looks like today, stairs going down. They're about 10 foot deep, and you, depending on how tall you were, that's how many steps you had to go down. I'm going to try to be discreet about this, but on either side of the road, there's a men's side and a women's side. We don't necessarily have a hard time understanding that because in the hall we have a men's restroom and a women's restroom, right? But whenever you would enter and eat, whichever, if you're going to the men's or the women, just inside the entrance, you would have to strip of every stitch of clothes that you have. You're standing there with everybody else in your gender. You're in your section. And when it was your time, if you're a man, you walk down till the water is just above your shoulders, just below your chin. And you get there and you dip completely under the water 7 times. And once you come out of the water, you walk up the stairs the other side and you drip dry. You don't touch yourself with a cloth of any kind until you're completely dry. Now, the rabbi was standing on the men's side. The rabbi's wife was standing on the women's side. And they would check, first of all, to make sure that you were unclothed before you got in, that you got out, didn't touch yourself with a cloth when you got out, and that for a lady, you were pure. Again, I'm going to try to be careful because we have young ones in here this evening. Whenever you have your cycle as a lady, it's much harder for a lady than it is for a man. Whenever you had your cycle as a lady and any bleeding took place at all, you had to completely separate yourself from your family completely. You ate in a different room. You slept in a different room. You had every part of your day separate from your entire family. As long as you were bleeding, you were not with your family. I'm leading up to something very significant in just a moment. So every cycle, when it was done, you'd have to go in front of the rabbi's wife so that she could determine whether you were done with that or not and could be pure and go back to your family. For a lady, before you dip down in the water, you would roll your hair up in your hand. You'd go down again, same thing. And you dip down even deeper to make sure that every strand of hair went underwater so that nothing was left uncleansed. In order to have holy water, which was what filled the mikvahs, it had to be either collected rainwater, which is why they had the gutter system, or it had to be built by a spring. And the water from rain or the spring water were all directed to a cistern which would feed these mikvahs. And if it got impure for any reason, something happened, a towel fell in the water, they'd have to empty the entire thing and refill it again. Holy water wasn't something that it is today. Holy water was untouched by human hands. That's the idea. Everybody understand that? Now, the thing about Magdala is Jesus took his disciples here. And Jesus obeyed the rabbinical law. So what did Jesus do every time that he went into the synagogue, even to teach? What did he have to do first? He'd have to cleanse himself physically. He had no sin. This has nothing to do with sin. This is a physical thing. Make sure you were clean before you go in. You'd have to have clean undergarments to put on when you came out when you were dry. And the rabbi or his wife said, you're good, you can get dressed. Clean undergarments, you can put the same outer garments on as you had whenever you got there. But men and women both, they did that. I'm rushing because I told you I'd try to be out by 8, so let's go. This is arguably the most famous painting in all of Israel. I wanted this painting so badly. We were going to a shop. They had small ones, so there was a 2 by just this big. I thought, oh, this is awesome. It's beautiful. $2,800. This is the woman with the issue of blood painting. It's famous worldwide. Time won't allow me to go through all of it, but let me just fast forward this way. Whenever you have to live completely separate from your family, ladies especially, could you understand how desperation could start to settle in? You can't hold your child. You can't take care of your child. You can't hold your husband. You can't sleep with your family. You can't do anything with your family. Remember the woman of issue of blood? How long did she suffer with this? 11 years, having to live separate. Not only that, every time you left your home as a lady, even if you're going for cleansing, and that applied also after childbirth. Remember the law there? If you had a boy, you had to wait how many days? 40 days for a boy, and you go get cleansed. 80 days for a girl, same thing. But every time you leave your home, if you have an issue at all, you have to wear a special garment that has bells on it to let everybody know you're unclean. Get out of my way. Don't touch me. Don't get around me. When the woman with the issue of blood entered a gigantic crowd of people to touch the hem of Jesus' garment, she was breaking every religious and ritualistic law there was. She could have been excommunicated for it if she got caught, because every person she bumped into, even touching their clothes, would have made them ritualistically unclean. But she had nothing to lose, right? 11 years. She had no money left. She'd already paid. Anybody ever wonder why she paid so much money? That's how desperate she was. So whenever she comes and she touches the hem of Jesus' garment, they can't, in Israel, you can't show blood in any type of picture or portrait. So they couldn't paint blood on there in any way. But if I wish the lighting was different, you can look it on my iPad later. The way they distribute it is everything from this side of her hand and what you can see of her skin looks really, really old, really old and deteriorated. But the tip of her finger, as she touches Jesus' garments, like a baby's finger. It's brand new skin, basically, it's the way they depict it. Does that make sense to you? It's a very popular. It's beautiful. I loved it, and a lot of people travel to see it. This is a fishing boat. They got out of the bottom of the lake, redid it. It's in the middle of the Catholic Church. It's there. This is interesting to me. If you start noticing, there's 6 disciples on this side. There's 6 disciples on the other side. But in the very front, the very first one is Judas. Well, how do you know that's Judas? Well, all the 11, if you can notice on this one, what do they have around their head? A halo. He's missing it. He doesn't have it. So that's how they depict Judas. You go forward, and in all these little separate Sunday school rooms they have in this church, they have these beautiful mosaic paint or mosaic work of art. That's Jesus walking on the water. Another one there where I'll get to in a minute. But this is one of the most popular. Whenever he heals, I think it's Jairus'. No, that's not right. Let me make sure I get it right. The daughter, and he had 3 witnesses. John, I got to get it. My brain, if y'all could see my brain right now, it's racing like crazy. Anyway, he's going to heal this babe, this child, and the 3 witnesses, Peter, James, and John, are in there with him. Do y'all remember that account? I can't remember who it was right now, but that's who it is. And then this one is the most besides the picture of the woman with the issue of blood we saw there, this is the most talked about work of art in all the region. This is Jesus healing Mary Magdala of the demons that she had in her. And the way that they depict that, if you look closely, this is the bottom of that same picture. See the serpent leaving, coming out, and there's demons right there. There's also demons coming out at the top. Whenever you see the coming out the top of her, that's how they depict Jesus cleansing her of the demons that were inside of her. Maybe that stuff makes sense to you, or maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I don't know, but I'm going to go to the next thing. I'm going to try to hurry. Bet Sheehan. I'll just flip through the pictures and talk, okay? This is a gigantic part of our history and the in-between period from the end of the Old Testament, the beginning of the New Testament. This is a huge part. This particular region is the most popular travel route there was in that day. From Jerusalem to Capernaum, any of the seashore towns, they would all come through this way. Very popular. In the Old Testament, let me say this quickly before I forget. In the Old Testament, this began to be popular, and this is the place. Whenever Saul and his sons were killed in battle, this is a place. They beheaded all 4 of them and sent their heads away, but they hung their bodies on the wall of this place, of Bet Shean, so that the very popular travel route, everyone coming by would leave the Philistines alone. So this was uncovered. This is an incredible. I wish I had time to tell you all about this. That's the main road leading into Bet Shean. This is a huge area. Very populated back in the day. Go up on the mountain, look down. This is what it looked like. It took them 43 years. This was covered up by an earthquake. It looked like mud, the whole place. 43 years. I forget how many people they had working on it. All they had was a little bitty shovel and a paintbrush to uncover all of this area. It took them that long to do it. Every day, that's all they did, is uncover this. It's pretty neat. I'm going fast now, but I'm going to try to show you the main things. Okay. This is the Colosseum. I don't know what happened. Maybe. Colosseum, amphitheater. There was a second story on this thing. It holds 7,000 people. For the sake of time, I'll just mention it this way. We're all preachers, right? So we all just had to walk up to the very middle right there. We just had to start talking. And so just whispering, if you're sitting at the very furthest part away, you could hear very clearly as if you're sitting next to each other. This is all stone. It's all slate. All the steps are slate. Everything there is stone. It's just incredible the way they did things. That's one stone that they built all the steps and seats out of. It's estimated that weighs around 1,100 pounds. So how do they move it? They had these little carts they would move the stones around with. That's how two people could move 1,100 pounds that way. That's how they moved them. Now you say, what's the big deal? Glad you asked. They started making archways with this stuff. This is a cistern there in the same place. I kept this picture for one thing. If you're under 5 foot, you'd have a hard time in Israel. Because the seats there, that you see out where my knee is, that's a seat. And all of them are that high. So the seat would be about right here on you. So you'd probably have to jump up on top of that seat. But I just kept it for that reason. These archways, those same big, humongous stones, they built archways with it. And Brother Todd knew the name of it. It's a form of building where the weight of the product that you're building with holds everything in place. So these stones are, how they got them up there, I don't know, but it's incredible. That's Bet Shean. You move from there. This is something you see anytime you're driving. You see sheep on the hillside, and if you look for long enough, you're going to see a shepherd not too far away. The shepherd doesn't yell, he doesn't scream, he hardly talks. He just moves and they follow him. If you notice, that wasn't a flat hill. That's up the side of a mountain. So that's how they all move around. That's just how they do it back there. That's normal for them. Jordan Valley, it's beautiful. It's just I don't have time. I got to keep going. We took some pictures here, pulled over on the side of the road, thought it was great. That's that, okay? Moving from there. Moving into Samaria. The most popular place for Samaria is Jacob's Well, where Jesus ministered grace to the Samaritan woman. Do you remember that? This is the outside of Samaria, just coming in. I want you to notice something you haven't seen yet. Y'all see all this? It's trash. When I tell you it's one of the dirtiest places I've ever been, I'm not exaggerating. That's outside the city. Inside the city streets, it's even worse than that. It's as if one of our trash trucks here in town filled up everybody's trash in the whole town, drove down the road with the back open, and it all spilled out on the roads. So as a result, there's walls on all of the city streets when you're driving through Samaria. That's the wall on the outside. It's just a brick wall. And all of a sudden, the driver pulls over on the side of the road and says, "Get out." Okay. There was one metal door, and he opened it. We walked through it, and they closed it and padlocked it behind him. It made me feel really safe. Now do you understand why people didn't want to go to Samaria? Still to this day, they don't want to be Jewish people, don't want to go there. So we walk in there, there's a Catholic church built there, but you walk down the little hill, you walk in, and this is the Catholic church that's inside the walls. And you walk in the door, mosaics everywhere. This is what it looks like inside. Beautiful, isn't it? They're worshiping a false god. They're not going to get to heaven, but they make it as beautiful as they possibly can. I'm trying to hurry, but this is what it looks like inside. This is just outside in the courtyard. You walk through courtyard, and then you go down some steps, and you get to Jacob's Well. I have no idea if you pictured it in mind looking different than that. I did. But that's the same well, the same way it looked then, it's the same way it is now. They built an entire church around it. The walls are double reinforced around it so nothing happens to that well. And if you look, there's little cups on the side of it. Those cups have been there for years. Probably thousands of people have drank out of it. But you can watch it later. I have a video of them dropping it. You can't see it probably, but the water is running like a river. It's 114 feet deep. He poured water in it. We waited, counted to 5 before the water hit the water down below. That's how deep that well is. How did they dig it? I have no idea. But Jacob dug a lot of wells, and this is the most famous one. So whenever you're there, this is the video. It won't play, but he did the little hand crank And the only way to get water out of the well is if you have a bucket. Hold that for a second. You go down, you bring it all the way back up, and you take that bucket and you set it in that cement trough, which is the same one too, that hasn't been changed. Remember what the Samaritan woman said to Jesus? Where's your bucket? How are you going to get water if you don't have, how can you draw if you don't have a bucket? It's impossible, physically impossible to get water out of that without a bucket. And you understand why she asked that question now. So they drew it out. I took that yellow cup right there. I took a drink of it. He said, that's crazy. I didn't care. I'd probably never be there again and to drink water. If you say the places in the world you want to see, there's two of them, top, instantly, without hesitation, Jacob's Well is number one. So drinking water out, if I got sick, oh well, I was drinking it. And it was wonderful. We got a little souvenir, Jacob's Well, pretty great, loved it. It's awesome. I have to fast forward. We went to Samaria next. Again, we had to wait for the sheep to cross so we could get down the road. We ate at this place, Samaria restaurant. I'm just going to flip through so you can see, so I can get to some more important things. This is the owner. He has Alabama. He lives in Alabama. He's a Crimson Tide guy inside of his store. There's a lot of Alabama replica there. This is what I wanted to show you from there. When you go to the store, you get these little crusty, gross pita bread things. How many of y'all like pita bread? You've never had really good pita bread until you've had this. This is pita bread. It's almost 2-foot circle. And he brought this out, and this is what he served us. You break off a piece, and he did it right in front of everybody. You break off a piece. Every time you eat, you have bowls of olive oil in front of you, and then anything you can imagine in front of you. Hummus, and then more hummus of all sorts of different kinds are there. You take a pinch of pita bread, you dip it in everybody uses the same bowl. There's no double dipping. You just dip in there, and then you dip it in whatever you want. There's bowls of seasonings. There's bowls of all sorts of herbs. There's bowls of different types of things. You dip it in there like a boat, and you eat it. It's amazing. I ate hummus and pita almost every meal the whole time I was there. It's all healthy, by the way. That's the thing they kept telling us. It's all healthy. And we thought, yeah, right. Not one person had stomach issues except for one who had it before he got there. And I was so thankful for that. It was a prayer request. I didn't want to get sick. Y'all might think that's weird. I didn't want to get sick. It was great. That's wheat soup. I don't know if you ever had that before. Those are pieces, little grains of wheat. What I'm going to show you next, I've never heard of. Pita pizza. They make everything out of pita they possibly can there. And that's chicken on top of this pita pizza. That's a piece of pizza rolled up. And that's a piece of chicken. And that's more of the pita there. You eat pita on everything. This is wheat and pistachio dessert. I don't know how it happens. If you could see the picture, if you come look at it later, you'll see. Imagine if you came to our house and I served you a plate of hair. How would y'all feel about that? Sounds pretty gross, doesn't it? If you look close enough, you see that there's nothing but strains. It's all wheat stalks that have been shredded. They look like pieces of hair. And then that green stuff, that's all pistachio that's ground up on top of it with honey. And you think, that doesn't sound very good. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. That's what we had for supper. This is where where it gets real. All right, the Garden of Gethsemane. If y'all need to go, I'm going to keep going. If y'all want to go, that's fine, I understand. Garden of Gethsemane, these olive trees, I don't know how to explain it to you except for it's like someone punches you. As soon as you walk through the gate and you see the first one, it's someone has taken their fist and they've just gut punched you as hard as they could, and you can't breathe. It just takes your breath away. These are over 2,000 years old. A lot of them are. And you walk through and you see these trees, and it's just amazing to see. And every step I took, I imagined in my brain that Jesus walked right there. Every path, I wondered. I don't want to say worship, but they take care of olive trees to a whole new level there. You see the rock they have supporting that limb? They brought a rock in to put underneath that so it wouldn't fall over and split. Another picture you'll see in a minute, they got ropes holding up the trees. Well, actually, that last one had a rope on it too, didn't it? Had a rope right there. They take care of them. These things have been there for all that time. This is the oldest one. It's gigantic. It's just the trunk. It's huge. It's been there a really long time. So this is all these little paths. It's all gravel paths you're walking through, and you're just wondering and imagining where Jesus was there, and if he prayed there, if he stopped there under this tree, did he stop under this tree? I did a few tourist things. One of them was I stood under the most popular tree there, and come on, you got to show that one. Come on. Go. If you looked on Facebook, you saw it. I was standing underneath it, and that's the one they say they believe Jesus was under whenever he was praying, asking the Lord to let this cup pass from me. I don't know why it's not showing, but you can look at it later. Will it show it now? That one didn't get loaded? Okay, it can show it to you later. Again, the paths, keep going through the path. This is all right in the Garden of Gethsemane. If you watch the Facebook, I did a video from there. Whenever you leave the Garden of Gethsemane, the Church of Many Nations is right there. It's this gigantic church that everybody travels to see. I stepped in it and turned right back around, could care less about it, because all I could look at is across the street. And that's the Eastern Gate. And you're standing there right outside the Garden of Gethsemane, you look up and you see the Eastern Gate. And if you know the Bible at all, that's a place that you can't speak. And once again, the uncontrollable tears came. It was just, I don't have time to go into all of it. Okay, so this is how our guide was just this way. We're driving down the road. We're on the way. We left Jerusalem. We're heading down towards the Dead Sea area. And he goes, oh, remember that guy Jacob, and there's something about a dream with a ladder? That's over there where those red roofs are. And over on your right, as if it wasn't a big deal at all. And I about my mouth hit the ground, and I couldn't believe it. That's Bethel. That's Bethel. That's where the second place was set up for worship. That is an incredibly important place. The whole passage, I was going to read it, but I'm not going to read it now. The whole place is where Jacob saw angels ascending and descending into heaven. And in Genesis 28, 10 through 22, that's where it took place. A big thing there, whenever you're traveling from Jerusalem down to the Dead Sea area, is you drop thousands of feet below. And so they have this big plaque right there that says you're at sea level right now, just as you leave Jerusalem and you start going down. And all of a sudden it goes from being these green hills to this. It goes from that to basically desert. And there it is again, sorry. When you get down to the Dead Sea, I talked about this quickly. I'll try to go through this fast. Something I've never seen before is farms just for palm trees. So you see these different levels, different growth rates of the palm trees. And you drive down the road a little bit further, you see more palm trees. And then you go a little bit further, and there's even more palm trees. They're growing dates. That's the third of their income in that area is dates off of palm trees. That's what they're growing. So that's what you see. I'm trying to hurry. If you see the roads, this is a road going up a mountain and zigzags back and forth. Now, why is that important? I'll say this. When we were traveling from Capernaum down to Jerusalem, the third day, we were driving through Palestine. And Palestine has a lot of roads, just like you were just looking at. Mountain roads where there's only one road. You go in, and what they do, the Palestinian military is very proud. And so whenever they want to usurp their authority, they shut a road down for no amount of time and no explanation. And you can't turn around. You can't do anything else. That's the only road going. You got to just wait till they're ready to open it up again. And that reasoning could be they're hungry, so they want to sit down and eat a sandwich, so they close the road off, and they send the young guys out with guns to keep you from trying to get past the gateway. So we sat on the side of the road for a while one day trying to travel. All I'm going to say about this place, Masada, it's very, very famous for a lot of reasons, that people want to travel and see it. But this is just one of King Herod's temples. And it's out in the middle of nothing. You're driving, all of a sudden there's this big plateau. Let's build a palace there with a bunch of swimming pools, if I can say it that way. And Herod built this. There are these trolleys from Switzerland are there. They hold 60 people. There's a glass floor. And you start going up this mountain. And you just keep going up. It takes 2.5 minutes to climb up to the top of this mountain. And you're going and you keep going and you just keep going and you keep going till you're up there. And you look out and you can see the Dead Sea. You can see a whole bunch of different areas. It's a beautiful sight to look at. When you get up there, the same type of things. They have houses on top of the mountain. These are storage closets. They have a whole bunch of storage closets. Why would they need that? Like in your kitchen, you have what's that called? Not a cupboard, but a pantry. This would be their version of pantries. They kept different types of produce. Why? Because they had to all bring it up in bulk up the mountain, and they stored it. Whenever they needed more, they'd go back down the mountain, and they'd carry it up. All around up there, you see the black line. That's the original. They built on top of it so we could see what it would have looked like. You go down, you see this whole civilization on top of a mountain. He's describing where most people lived there. Then the king's bedroom was there, and the swimming pool was there. The swimming pool is all over the place because it gets up into 135 and higher during the summer every day. The low during the summer on that mountain's around 125. So that's the middle of the night. So a lot of times you even sleep in a swimming pool if that cooled you off. So that's what the wind's coming up the side of the mountain. This is Herod's swimming pool right here. That's the lowest one. The winds coming up would cool you off also when it kept the water cool. I'm only going to show you this quickly because Brother Todd told me to. You see that right there? See the holes in it? The people that lived on this for hundreds of years loved pigeons. Now, this really quickly, that is not built for pigeons. They did it. If you are in Israel, Jewish, it doesn't matter. If you're in Israel, no one ever, for any reason, cremates anybody. And this is a cremation wall. People would cremate their loved ones and put them in the holes, but you couldn't cremate. So instead, those became homes for pigeons. And pigeons were loved for two reasons. Number one reason is for eggs. They ate pigeon eggs a lot. It takes a lot of little eggs to make an omelet, but that's what they eat. The second reason is their dung. Now that sounds gross, but this is all rock. There's no topsoil. So the pigeon dung became their topsoil. This is a garden bed that at the time would have been probably anywhere from 4 to 6 inches deep of nothing but. Yep, and that's how they grew all their produce, and it worked very well. They ate all year long off the produce that they would. This is another field they would plant. So that's just that. All right, next place is En Gedi. If you read in Psalm 104 and Psalm 30, you read about the conies. They look like a big woodchuck around here, except for that's just what they're famous for. This is a umbrella tree. Remember a fellow named Elijah when he's running from the king's wife. He hides underneath the tree and wants to die. Remember that? This is an umbrella tree. This is the tree a tree like he would have hid underneath. This one, I've got to look at it because I say it right. I'm not going to be able to say it now. But that's a tree that grows giant thorns. And that's what they made the thorn of crowns that they put on, the crown of thorns they put on Jesus' head. That grows there also. It's famous for its caves. Now, we're far away. It doesn't look like those are big openings, but every one of those openings, almost all of them are big enough for you to stand up in the opening of the cave. There's hundreds of them on that whole mountainside. We're walking up to it. There's giant ones up there. There's a little bit smaller ones here, but they're famous. Another thing they're famous for is hot and cold springs of water. So people travel there to see that. That is where David and his crew were hiding in the cave. And remember when Saul came in to relieve himself, and David took his knife and cut off a portion of the hem of his garment. Excuse me. That's where that took place. I'm so sorry. Qumran, I'll fast forward through this one because this isn't something a lot of people are interested in. How many ever heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls? You ever heard of that? This is where those were found. Shepherd boy, minding his own business, bored one day. Sheep were probably in the shadow of the mountain, probably resting. So he got bored, started adventuring or just kind of scavenging around, and he started going in these caves, and he'd find these tubes that had scrolls. Every book of the Old Testament has been found except for one. They found 2 copies of, I think it's Ruth, as they found 2 copies of. They're missing one, but all of them were found in these caves. There's another mikvah everywhere you go. Ladies, this is your kitchen. This is a high-class kitchen in that day. You would cook your food, the fire would be in there, They'd put a piece of wood over the top of that, and that's your kitchen. That's how you cooked. I'm fast forwarding because of the stuff you want to see. This is the same thing. Can you imagine? I wonder what's in that hole. And you climb the side of that wall and you find the Word of God. It'd be pretty great. So that's another one of the caves they found the Word of God in. This may or may not matter to you, but as soon as you leave, in Getty, when you're walking out, you see Mount Nebo. Mount Nebo, I'm going to mention again in a few minutes. Mount Nebo is where Moses died, where God took his life. So that's right outside of Getty. Dead Sea. Man, I'm sorry. You walk down the side of the mountain. You get down to the water. The water was not fun. Thank you. I love her. It was not good, but we were there. I don't know if I've ever been there, go there again, so I had to get in the water. The water's really shallow compared to where it was. They say between 25 and 30 years, if things don't change, the entire Dead Sea will be gone, completely dried up. So because of that, they warned us before we went in. There are portions of the bedrock that humans are now touching they haven't touched before, and that means there's going to be quicksand. I thought, okay. They weren't lying. I was walking along. I had my Crocs, and they were in sport mode. Everything was good. And I'm walking, and all of a sudden, my left leg, poof, it's up above my knee. They told us two things. Don't let the water get in your ear. Don't swallow it. Man. Anyway, so I'm up over my knee in the sand, can't move. Water's coming over the top of me. So I just worked as hard as I leaned on my right side and tried to pull my leg out. When I did, my shoe stayed down in the hole. I got baby feet, so I can't climb up that mountain. So I stuck my foot back down in the hole, fishing around, trying to find my shoe. Felt something way down at the bottom. So I took a deep breath, pulled my leg out, shoved my arm down, and grabbed my shoe and pulled it out. I had camo, Realtree Edge camo Crocs on. And this is what I pulled out. The good news is, it was my left shoe that I lost. This is the left shoe. Size 12 Croc, size 12 Adidas. So I cleaned the muck out of it and stuck it on my foot and got out of there. So this is my coming out of the water with my shoe on my foot. We'll do a day 2 of this, okay? I don't know what's going on. I can't even talk, so we'll just do another day. The better stuff's coming. Maybe if you want to look at any of the pictures that I've shown tonight that you couldn't see really well, please come and check them out, all right? Let's have a word of prayer. I'm sorry I got choked up. I don't know what happened. I apologize. Brother Todd, close this, please.
Live a life that proclaims who and what you are. Share with others every opportunity you have.
Amen. Thank you for your patience. Is it not synced all the way?
2 of them look like they're St. Jackson.